The following is a paid program brought to you by My Philly Lawyer. The views and opinions expressed are those of the sponsor and do not necessarily reflect the views and opinions of the station and its management.
Good morning. Court Radio is now in session. Call 215-227-2727. When you've got legal questions, we've got the answers. This is Court Radio. And now here's your host, Dean Weitzman.
Good morning and welcome to Court Radio. It's Dean Weitzman, your host for the next hour, answering your legal questions. All you got to do is give me a call at 215-227-2727. Our regular Court Radio listeners know what to do. One question only. And I'll do my best to get you the answer. Give us a call at 215-227-2727. And if you want to post your question or ask it via email, you can always reach me at dean@myphillylawyer.com. That's what you got to do, dean@myphillylawyer.com. 215-227-2727. Folks, you're not going to believe it, but we got a special guest and co-host of Court Radio today, the one and only Philadelphia's own Commissioner Charles Ramsey. Welcome to Court Radio, sir.
Thank you. Good to be here.
Yes, sirree. We have a ton of questions for you, but I'm sure our callers will have many as well. You know, I'm so proud of my alma mater today. Temple has torn it up on the field. Wow. They took down Penn State. They hadn't won in 74 years. Commissioner was a little boy back then. He did say he's old school. I don't know how old school is, but, you know, it was World War II, I think, or something. It was in the early 40s when Temple beat Penn State. And last week they took, and now we thought it was just going to be a kind of a one-and-done thing. And this week they took on another perennial favorite, Cincinnati, and in Cincinnati, and destroyed them. It was just amazing. I think Temple's, you know, on the road to maybe a bowl position. You know, well, no, I can't say the last time they were in a bowl game, but I actually was in the Temple Diamond Marching Band in 79 when they were in the Garden State Bowl. Where were you in 79, Commissioner?
I was a sergeant in Chicago Police Department.
Still working a desk?
No, I was on the street.
Out on the street?
Working narcotics.
Wow, okay. How long have you been in law enforcement?
Since 1968. December 1968 is when I became a police cadet in Chicago, which I'm a native Chicagoan. Mm-hmm. And I've worked in Chicago, Washington, D.C., and now, of course, Philadelphia.
Did you always know that you were going to have the top spot in the police department?
No, I didn't know that, but when I became a lieutenant, I remember the superintendent of police at the time, Leroy Martin, was at a meeting, and he talked about the need to go back to school and get your at least undergraduate degree if you didn't have it. I had 3 years completed at the University of Illinois, but I dropped out, and that's when it really kind of struck me that I could really go a little further. So I went back to school, got my undergraduate and graduate degree, and really started kind of working to build a resume that one day would pay off.
Yeah, and it certainly has. You have an interesting job. You're kind of, you know, at the very epicenter of what's going on in the cities you're working in. Today it's Philadelphia, and you've been here for a while. When did you get here?
I came here with Mayor Nutter. January 7th, 2008, so a little over 7.5 years. I was police chief in D.C. for 9, and I did almost 30 in Chicago.
Wow. You've had a couple of careers.
Yeah. Yeah, been around a long time. That's what I mean by old school. I think I qualify.
I think so. Well, I know people have a lot of questions for you, but are you here after the mayor leaves?
Well, that's not up to me. I'm in a position where it's at will, and certainly a new mayor ought to bring in their own team. I certainly understand that, and I've not had any conversations with any of the candidates, either Ms. Bailey or Mr. Kinney. So I'm right now just focusing on finishing out the year as strong as we can and trying to keep crime down as low as we can.
Well, let me ask you this. I mean, you know, Jim Kenney's in all likelihood, going to be the next mayor of Philadelphia. I mean, we are Philadelphia. It's a Democratic town. I think we have to go back further than when Temple beat Penn State to find a Republican mayor of Philadelphia. So if Jim becomes the next mayor, and should he tap you as police commissioner, would you consider it?
Well, I mean, I don't want to make an announcement one way or the other here today. That's a decision solely up to the mayor as to who he's comfortable with and what he wants to do. Certainly, if he would like to have a conversation about that, we'll deal with that whenever it comes up. But right now, my focus is on finishing out the year. We have the Pope coming up in just a couple of weeks. We've got the Dalai Lama right after that. And then we've got to start preparing for the Democratic National Convention next year. So,
wow,
it's just one thing after the other. So I've got plenty to keep me busy. And then, of course, we always have to deal with crime issues in the city. And we're coming up on a very busy part of the year, which is the fall. A lot of people look at summertime, but we tend to have a rough time in the fall every year. So we're trying to gear up for that as well.
All right. All right. Well, listen, I have some questions about the Pope's visit, but I'm going to hold those for a second. We're going to take a call or two. Let's talk to Ella from Mount Holly, New Jersey. Hello, Ella, and welcome to Court Radio.
Well, good morning.
Good morning to you. Is this your first time calling?
Yes, it is.
All right. Why today did I earn the right to answer your question?
Well, because I always listen to it, and I have a question, and I thought, you know what, let me give it a shot and see if I can get through.
Go ahead. All right, you're here. And not only are you here, but you're here in the number one position, and you're from Jersey. So I don't know. Everybody has an off day. Today's mine. Come on, Ella.
Okay. It's a workman's comp question. I recently settled a workman's comp claim. Well, they made an offer. I accepted the offer. The offer was pretty low. And I do have what I consider permanent damage, but the lawyer said if I went to court, it would be a possibility they would throw it out and I'd walk away with nothing. But then I could always reopen it. So what are my chances of, reopening and going to court and them listening to me?
Well, okay. Not knowing the particular, let me ask you this: is it in Philadelphia? Is it in Pennsylvania or in New Jersey where the comp claim lies?
In New Jersey.
Okay. And is this settlement for medical benefits and wages?
I guess it's medical. I guess.
Okay. Let me ask you this. Have you been before a judge at this point? Have you signed a release and gone before a judge, and was your deal approved by the judge?
Yes, it was.
Okay. I would say, all right, realistically, that there's little chance that you're going to get back before a workers' comp court for this injury at this job. Could you bring a new claim? Yes. But usually they want to have a finality with a settlement, even in the workers' comp arena. Sometimes they'll leave the door open for additional medical treatment, okay? But when there's a final settlement, both on medicals as well as wages, and you've accepted the amount and you've signed off on a release, it would be extraordinarily unusual to have that claim reopened. Is it impossible? No. But it would not be an easy task you face. And usually when people sign a release, and this is, I guess, the piece that I'd like to emphasize with the other listeners, when you sign a release, you've given up the right to claim damages from that cause of action. And should you sign a release and you had an injury to your arm, and later you find out that your injury to your arm is actually your neck and your lower back as well, and you may need surgery, you didn't realize that when you signed the release, too bad. You've signed that release for not only the injuries you know about, but all those that could come down the pike. Otherwise, claims would never end. And they would just keep being opened again and again and again. And that would make it an untenable situation. So you gotta get all that you intend to get from a claim when you settle it. And if you're not happy with a claim, then you need to get a second opinion as well. If somebody tells you, hey, this is going to be an impossible claim, you're going to lose, you got to take what they're offering you. It's at that moment, if you have doubts. And I'm not saying everybody has doubts, but if you have doubts at that moment, go talk to another lawyer. Have somebody else review your case at that point before you make what could be a final and important decision. Ella from Mount Holly, I hope I answered you, and I thank you for calling Court Radio, dear, and have a great Sunday.
Okay, thank you. You as well.
All right. Listen, let's get back to the Pope.
All right.
We have Charles Ramsey in studio today for the entire hour. He's a prisoner of Court Radio. He's voluntary prisoner. He's here on his own free will to answer questions. And we got somebody who's on the line, and I'm going to put him on in a second. But in some ways, as a business owner in the city of Philadelphia, I almost feel like the Pope visit is already a failure. And nothing bad has happened. From your perspective, I mean, your job is to protect him and everybody else. But I mean, my people, my employees, for 3 days, 4 days, they can't even get into work. I have to essentially shut down, right? I mean, public transportation in and around the city of Philadelphia, other than those who have those special passes, and my office is in the red zone. That's where we are. We're in the red zone. Is Philadelphia treating it differently than, let's say, where you came from in Washington? It seems like, people of this ilk come through Washington and nobody even knows it's happening.
Well, first of all, the World Meeting of Families and the mayor's office have been working with businesses to deal with the issues that you've raised. How do you get employees in? How do we get deliveries in if you're a business that, sells food, getting fresh fruits, vegetables, bread, things of that nature? And those issues have pretty much been worked out. Now, is it going to be an awful lot of people, and will it be different that weekend than normal? Yeah, because you won't be able to drive into certain areas and things of that nature. But the city and the World Meeting of Families has been working very hard to try to keep businesses able to operate if they choose to be able to operate. Some have voluntarily decided to close, but others have decided to stay open. And I think the majority, at least in terms of businesses like, places to go shop, eat, things like that, have decided to stay open.
Yeah, well, we don't shop or eat. We sue people, and I guess we're non-essential in that regard. We can always put off till next week to sue somebody, but, All right, long as the statute of limitations hasn't run. Let's take call from number 4. Sorry, Larry. 4. Who's got a question for Commissioner Ramsey? Hello, and welcome to Court Radio.
Hey, how you doing this morning?
I'm well, morning. Thanks. Good morning.
How you doing, Mr. Ramsey?
I'm doing well, thank you.
Hey, Mr. Ramsey, my question to you is, do you feel as though that the department has reached its goal on hiring a minority for the police department yet?
Did we reach a what now?
Your goal.
Oh, a goal. No.
Yeah, the goal.
No. I mean, listen, there is no set number. I mean, but what we want to do is be able to have as diverse a workforce as possible. We certainly, right now, about 33% African-American, which is underrepresentation in the city, and we're going to continue to work as hard as we can and not only have racial and gender diversity, but diversity in every arena that we can possibly find, whether it's sexual orientation or whatever. I mean, we just need to continue to have as diverse a department as possible, as many bilingual police officers as possible. So there is no goal in terms of a hard number that once we reach it, then we say, okay, that's enough. We don't need to do any more. I think that we need to just continue to push forward and do the best we can.
But why is it that that's a hard goal to reach and most of the jobs that are out there in the city?
Well, there's a couple reasons, and I'll tell you where we lose most of the candidates that apply. One is the fitness requirement, which is from the state, that people have to pass a certain level of physical fitness prior to even moving forward. Now, that is, again, mandated by the state, being able to run, I think it's 1.5 miles, and sit-ups, push-ups, that sort of thing. Then we have a reading exam. We raise the educational requirements to 60 semester hours or higher, so we haven't had as many people fail as we used to have. But that used to be an area where a lot of candidates would be knocked out of the process. The reading exam is only at a 9th grade level. It's supposed to move up to an 11th grade later. And again, this is all requirement by the state. But unfortunately, we have a lot of candidates that simply can't make that requirement. Then we have the background that we have to go through with each candidate. We lose a few there, but the majority of people that we lose is either through the fitness or the psychological testing that has taken place.
Bob from Sharon Hill, thank you for your great questions and have a great Sunday, sir.
Thank you.
215-227-2727. We got Commissioner Ramsey, who's sitting in on Court Radio today, taking your questions. Of course, if you've got legal questions, we'll still answer those as well. Let's talk to Brenda on line 5 from North Philly. Good morning, Brenda.
Good morning, sir. Good morning.
How are you?
Mr. Ramsey.
Good morning.
My question is, I live in North Philly, and we see the same officers, the same police officers, come to the same drug corner and harass the working people. How do we have a meeting to, have some communication?
Now,
again, I live in North Philly, and Temple is widely in our area, and it's to the point now where officers walk past and ask people, do they live on the steps they're sitting on?
a lot of that comes from complaints that we receive from residents in the area where we do have drug trafficking, and oftentimes drug traffickers will take over an area, including the front porches of people who actually live there. One of the issues from what you're saying, though, sounds like that officers still are not familiar with the people that live in that area, and that's where really community policing is one of the goals. If the first time we ask that question and don't know, okay, fine, the officer didn't know. But if you come back the next day and it's the same people sitting there and you know that person lives there, then there's no need to ask the same question. And that comes from really understanding and knowing who's who if they're not involved in criminal activity. Of course, if they are, then that's a different issue. But assuming that's not the case, then that's the whole point of community policing, continuity of assignment. Now, there are monthly meetings that take place across the city in each of our police service areas. You can go on our website, phillypolice.com, and you can put in your address and find out which PSA you belong to and when that next meeting is, and you can have that discussion with the lieutenant that oversees that area. Or you can contact the captain. I don't know if you're in the 22nd district or which district in North Philly you're in, but you can definitely make that a point that if people are being stopped and if it's a question if they're not engaged in any kind of criminal activity, just sitting on their own porch, and there's no complaint, then obviously that's something we can deal with.
That's what we're trying as a community. I belong to Primrose Advisory, and we're trying to set up a community meeting because people have lived in this community for 30, 40, some even 50 years. And it is just a shame that your grandchildren, high school students coming home and maybe on a Pacific day just decided to sit on the steps and get harassed. I think that's horrible.
Well, it doesn't sound like it's pleasant. On the other hand, what's positive out of that is that people are there asking questions and caring, and obviously they're there because they want to try to make the neighborhood a safer way and a safer place. They may not be doing it in the best fashion in that instance, and but the commissioner's giving you an opportunity to go online. Where is it again to go online?
phillypolice.com. That's our website, and you can find out exactly what district you're in, which police service area you're part of, when the next meeting is. We will come out to a community meeting. That's not a problem. But it's a balance that you have. You mentioned early on there's drug trafficking in that area. So we have to deal with that issue because we just can't let that run uncontrolled either. So we just need to make sure we can separate who's actually involved in criminal activity versus who is not, and then respond accordingly.
All right. Thank you so much for your call, and have a great Sunday. You know, Commissioner, there's it's been in the news all over the country, police misconduct, aggressive policing, to the point where officers are accused of assault and even killing prisoners, detainees in the process of the arrest. This has caused a lot of mistrust. I mean, you hear it, you heard it in that caller's call. What's going on in Philadelphia to try to assuage that mistrust?
Well, I mean, it really starts with trying to build relationships, and relationships are built by getting to know one another. And just like that last caller, having those officers better understand who lives in that area, who's involved in criminal activity, who isn't involved in criminal activity, and conduct themselves accordingly. It takes some time in order to be able to do, but there is tension here like there is in other parts of our country right now. It's very unfortunate that some of the highest tension is often in the most challenged areas that really where there needs to be police, there needs to be better cooperation between police and community, and oftentimes that's where things can be very, very fragile. Not with everyone in the community, but certainly with a significant number. We're changing the way in which we train our officers. Courses like fair and impartial policing, understanding the role of police in a democratic society, going through more reality-based training where officers are forced to exercise judgment in different scenarios with an emphasis on de-escalating. We go to a lot of very volatile scenes, situations, and we need to be able to de-escalate those. You
certainly don't want the police to be responsible for escalating.
Exactly.
Exactly. I mean, they're there. You're exactly right. They're there to de-escalate.
Right.
But we've seen situations where they've actually been the guiding force in escalating something.
Yeah, but the other part of that is, and I think that we need to kind of keep everything in context. There are about 800,000 police officers in the United States. We're the fourth largest here. We have tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of contacts with citizens. The vast majority you never hear about. The only ones you hear about are the ones that go bad.
Right.
And so the majority of officers do their job, do it well. They do de-escalate. They don't get involved in any acts of misconduct or what have you. But the only thing you'll see on television, the only thing that gets talked about are those instances where that's not the case. And I understand that's reality. I understand that. But I think it's also important that we keep it in context that, that's not every cop. I think over the last 7.5 years, I've been very aggressive at weeding out those individuals that are problematic and not conducting themselves properly in our department, and we'll continue to do that. But the majority of our people get out and do it very, very well every day.
Money, no object. Money, no object. Would you endorse body cameras?
Oh, even with money, I endorse them. I'm very much a proponent, but I think people, again, ought to have realistic expectations. It's not going to solve everything, but it has proven to be a difference maker. When you watch videos on television, no matter how bad they look, they usually capture an event once it's already started. You don't really see what precipitated the incident to begin with. A body camera from beginning to end would capture everything, let the cards fall where they may. Also, I think it also changes the behavior of everybody involved. And we've already done an experiment in our 22nd district in North Philly, and we alert people that they're on camera. We tell them that, I'm wearing a body camera and this incident's being recorded. Everybody's behavior changes. The behavior of the person that you're talking to, the behavior of the police officer, everybody. So that has a calming effect to a large extent, and that's a good thing.
Yep.
And that's a very good thing. And it does give you a good record of an incident. Whether it's good or bad, it's evidence. It's something that we can use to deal with a situation.
Folks, we're going to be right back. We have to take a break so our sponsors can talk about their things. But we'll be joined by Police Commissioner Charles Ramsey when we come back. And keep your questions coming. 215-227-2727.
If you have legal problems and need answers, call My Philly lawyer, Dean Weitzman, first at 215-227-2727 for personal injury, medical malpractice, birth injury, and more. Call Dean first.
He will fight for your rights. That's what Dean Weitzman is all about.
Call My Philly lawyer, Dean Weitzman, first. 215-227-2727. My Philly lawyer, when winning matters most. For 20 years, Center City Medical Center has provided premium expert medical services for Philadelphia. Whether you need musculoskeletal rehab or an immigration physical, call 888-945-EXAM. Our board-certified physicians have more than 80 years' experience from post-injury rehab to DNA paternity testing. To make an appointment at one of our 3 convenient locations, call 888-945-EXAM. Get premium expert care. Center City Medical Center, serving Northeast, North, and Center City, Philadelphia. If you've been injured on the job and are entitled to workers' comp, you need someone fighting for you from the start. Call Jeffrey Gross, attorney at law. Don't rely on your employer or insurance company to get it right. Call 215-512-1500. If you're entitled to workers' comp or it's being challenged, Jeffrey Gross can help get the money you deserve, and he won't get paid unless you get paid. Call 215-512-1500. Jeffrey Gross, attorney at law, representing Pennsylvania's injured workers for more than 20 years. It's a legal and financial squeeze. You're unable to work because of an accident, but your legal case is still not settled, so you can't pay the bills to take care of your family. But now, thanks to U.S. Claims, you can. If you have a pending lawsuit, call 1-877-US-CLAIMS. While you're waiting for your settlement, U.S. Claims can help you pay the bills. Get out of the squeeze. Call 1-877-US-CLAIMS today.
The following is a paid program brought to you by My Philly Lawyer. The views and opinions expressed are those of the sponsor and do not necessarily reflect the views and opinions of the station and its management.
Need more legal answers? Here's more Court Radio with your host, Dean Weitzman.
Good morning and welcome back. It's Court Radio, and I'm Dean Weitzman. If you've got legal questions, we've got the answers. Give us a call. 215-227-2727. During the week, that gets you over to My Philly Lawyer, where you'll find me hanging out usually Monday to Friday, along with my staff, except for next week when the Pope is here, in which case we'll all be retired that week, making it a little easier for the commissioner to do his job, you know. Getting non-essential people out of the city. So, in any event, I was going to consider suing the papacy, but I thought that was probably a bad idea, you know. Lost income, lost jobs, you know, the whole bit. But God bless. I hope everything goes well. How many people do you think you're going to have in the city, extra people that day? Or that weekend?
We don't know. Everyone's been guessing. I've heard figures as low as 500,000, as high as 1.5 million. We'll find out in a couple of weeks, but I have no idea. I think somewhere in the middle, maybe close to 1 million, one way or the other, is probably a realistic figure.
Now, will you actually get to meet the Pope?
Well, I'll be at all the events. And he's going to be quite busy. His schedule is really being handled through the World Meeting of Families and the Vatican. So I may or may not be able to actually one-on-one physically meet him. I'm not planning on that. If I have the opportunity, I would. But that's really not what I've been focused on. It's just basically making sure that that's all secure. But even more importantly, the surrounding communities. We're very, very concerned to make sure that we have enough resources, and we will have enough resources out there beyond where the Pope is visiting. So I'm really more concerned about what goes on outside the perimeter than inside the perimeter, and making sure we have sufficient resources to respond.
You know, I guess I don't know why I moved my mind into this direction, but when I was a kid, okay, there was the city of Philadelphia was its own little world in the sense that you never saw state police inside the city. Now, all of a sudden, state police are everywhere. I mean, it's like I could be going down Cotman Avenue. There's state police. I mean, where do they come? Why all of a sudden do we see such an influx of non-Philadelphia policing?
Well, they handle the expressways, 95 and 76, 676. The state patrols those highways, and so as a result, you see more and more of them actually in the city. We had a traffic division at one time that was large enough to be able to handle that. We no longer have that. We have a traffic division, but it's not large enough to be able to handle that. They focus on the Boulevard, Kelly Drive, Lincoln Drive, other parts of the city where we have a lot of issues in terms of traffic enforcement. And the state police take care of the actual expressways.
Are they allowed to use what is that? Like a laser?
Yes, radar.
Radar.
Yes.
There you go. They can use radar in the city.
Right. They can use radar. They can use VASCAR. They can use radar. So yes.
Okay. Well, there you go. Let's talk to Tina from Overbrook on line 3. Good morning, Tina.
Good morning, sirs. How are you both today?
Doing well. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, doing very well.
Thank you. I have a comment number one for the commissioner. Number one, I want to thank you for being on the radio this morning, and I encourage you to be heard more often in the city. Prior to listening this morning on the radio, I can only think of a couple of times that I've actually heard you on the radio speaking out on important issues. And I hope that after the papal visit that we get the chance to hear you more often on the radio and also just out in the city. I know you're busy, but I hope that is something that will come about as well. So that's just comment number one, and just to thank you for your service.
Well, thank you for that.
What's your question, Tina?
My question is, in terms of using technology to our advantage to keep residents informed of criminal activity and also, more importantly, helpful community activity, can we find a way to possibly input like an electronic message board on the outside of the district offices or on the interior of the district offices just to keep the residents informed?
By district offices, you mean the actual police stations?
Absolutely.
Yeah, well, we use Twitter. We use all the different social media platforms to push information out. I had not thought of putting any kind of message board outside of the districts. That's something that we'd have to really consider, but I don't know how many people that would reach. Quite frankly, you'd have to actually be either standing in front or driving by the facility. But I think we can, and we do, continue to use Twitter and various other forms of social media to push information out. We also have a website where we have a lot of information available to the public as well. As far as radio and television appearances, that's something when I'm invited, I usually accept. That's why I'm here at 7 o'clock in the morning on a Sunday, which normally is my sleep-in day.
And Tina, you should see, he even has brass and braids on his pajamas. It's amazing.
I know. Well, my first comment is, oh my goodness, you were not invited before now by my silly lawyer. I cannot believe that.
Okay, I see. We've turned this around. Thank you, Commissioner. We're now hating on Dean.
Yes, absolutely, Dean Weitzman. I know you absolutely. I met you. So yes, that's not a good form in your call. But to continue on my comment and also your comment, Commissioner, I do appreciate Twitter. I do appreciate all of the social media that is out there. And yes, it is a broad audience that you're reaching with all of the posts that are out there. And I'm not suggesting that we pull back from that and go back to FaceTime or street corners or one-on-one with people. But I'm just thinking in terms of the individuals that still today do not trust social media. Do not want to be a part of social media. And I know we think that's not a large audience, but it is. It could be any age of of an individual, any ethnicity, any gender, that doesn't trust social media. So if they are in the area of the 19th district and they're walking by and they see the message board, that might be something that might interest them as well. And case in point, the only reason I bring that out is because I believe the 19th district recently participated in a back-to-school event. And I myself am a part of social media, and I'm also a part of the community, and I get involved when I see something going on. However, unfortunately, that was one incident that I totally missed. I didn't hear any advertising of the event until after the event was held.
Well, that's unfortunate because, again, we really encourage our district captains, and you have a good one over there in Captain Bologna who does an awful lot with the community, and I'm really kind of surprised that that information didn't get out. But again, listen, I'll take that under consideration. I don't think it's an either-or proposition. We have to meet face-to-face with folks. We got to use social media. We got to do everything we can to touch as many people as possible and keep the community informed of what's going on.
Tina, thanks for calling Court Radio. Thanks for your great comments and questions. For and against. All right, have a great Sunday. 215-227-2727. Let's talk to Lee on line 4 from North Philly. Hey, Lee, welcome to Court Radio.
Hey, good morning.
Good morning to you.
Good morning.
Good morning, Commissioner Ramsey. I just want to comment once again on the police brutality because I understand that they're going through different classes now and they're going through a lot of training, but I got pulled over myself maybe about 3 weeks ago, and the police officer was just so nasty. You know, he treated me like I was the drug dealer. I don't sell no drugs. I work every day. And he took me out the car, and you know, and I was actually at 29th and Jefferson is where I was at. And I understand that it's a high crime area, but what about the people down there that's not criminals? They're getting caught up in this, you know, as though they were criminals. They're being treated like criminals.
Well, I mean, again, that's part of our training. I mean, police officers have to be respectful, period. Even when they're dealing with people who are engaged in criminal activity, there's no way, there's no reason to be disrespectful. Do your job, do what you have to do to bring a situation under control, but respecting another person will get us a lot further than any use of force or you know, harsh language or what have you. I'm aware that those kinds of things go on. I'm also aware that sometimes it's, you know, the other way around, where people are using abusive language toward police. But then if that's the case, then we have to not respond in a negative way, because two people doing that together, only bad things can happen. So that's all part of de-escalation. That's all part of the training, how to approach, how to talk to people. Those kinds of things. It's not just about physical force. It's also about verbal communication.
You know, Lee, I when I was a young guy, I remember an incident where I had purchased a car out of state, and the car had a Jersey inspection sticker. And when I bought it, I got Pennsylvania tags on it. But I had not yet gotten a Pennsylvania inspection. Under the law, I had 10 days to do that from the time of purchase. So I got stopped by an officer, and I knew why I got stopped. He saw PA tags and a Jersey inspection. And he came up to the window, and I said, he said, you know, give me your registration and license. I said, officer, I know why you stopped me, and just want to let you know that I'm still within the 10-day grace period. Well, he just flipped out. I mean, it went from 1 to 10 with like that. And, you know, so I get it. You know, there are moments and times when officers escalate incidents where, you know, all he needed to say was, let me look at your documents, and then say, okay, you have to get it done. Make sure you get it done within the 10 days and walk away. But I guess I challenged him in some fashion in his mind, and that led down a path. But I backed off, and he eventually calmed himself down and left. The point is, as the commissioner said, what you and I experienced is the anomaly. Far more often, things like that go fine, go the way they're supposed to go. But it's not a perfect world. And you know what? I like the body cameras because that will show the whole picture. And it will change people's behavior. I'm convinced of that. But, Lee, thanks for calling Court Radio. Have a great Sunday and stay safe. All right, we got on line 3 a question for the commissioner. Hello. Good morning. Good morning. Oh, well, the crickets. All right. Well, this is perfect because it gives us an opportunity for me to ask you about your recent appointment as the chair of President Obama's 21st Century Police Task Force. First of all, how did you, no offense, but I mean, there's a lot of police commissioners in the United States of America. He found you. And is it something to do with your both coming from Chicago?
Actually, I didn't know President Obama when I was in Chicago. Actually, had never heard of President Obama when I was in Chicago. I left in 1998, so that's before his name really rose in terms of his own visibility, even in the state of Illinois. But I did serve 2 terms as president of the Major City Chiefs Association, which is made up of the 67 largest cities in the United States, the 9 largest in Canada, and 3 in the UK. And I was also president of the Police Executive Research Forum at the same time, which is a Washington-based think tank on policing issues. So I've been around for a while in policing, and I'm involved in a lot of things at a national level. I got a call right before Thanksgiving of last year from the White House asking if I'd be interested in serving as co-chair of the task force that the president was putting together. I accepted. He named the other members around December 18th, and we were given 90 days to get a report to him dealing with various issues which obviously are affecting policing today. We were able to do that, and in May, the final report was published. So
does that bring an end to the commission?
Well, I mean, we are in the process now of going around. I've been in Nashville, I've been to Arlington, Texas, been to Phoenix, and we'll be going to other cities as well. Really talking about the task force work and the recommendations, and encouraging agencies to adopt the recommendations. We're in the process of doing that here in Philadelphia.
What's the top 3 recommendations?
Well, the first pillar that we called it is building trust and legitimacy, and that is a huge issue. You've heard it from your callers here today. Whether it's dealing with use of force, the investigations that take place, should police officers or police departments investigate shootings by their own members, for an example, or should an outside law enforcement agency do it?
And what's the answer?
Well, the answer, as far as I'm concerned, is I agree with that. I mean, that's why it's a recommendation. We reached consensus on that. Now we haven't worked it out yet, but
so it should be an outside agency.
Well, that's my personal feeling.
Mm-hmm.
Now, whether or not there's nothing that mandates that departments do this, but that certainly is a recommendation. The task force was made up not only of police, but of community activists, of civil rights leaders, of academics and researchers. It was a very diverse group, and we did reach consensus on that. There are other recommendations around training and education for police officers. Officer safety and wellness was part of it as well. When you talk about officers talking in a unprofessional manner, a lot of that has to do with the stress and tension that's inherent in the job of policing. And what are we doing to take care of the psychological well-being of our officers so that they can go out on the street balanced and not overreact to situations? Because we've paid attention to that, and we've kind of given them ways in which they can let off that steam that can build up over time when you're dealing with these very stressful situations over and over and over again. So there are a variety of recommendations in that. It can be found on our website. It can be found on the COPS office website and the White House website.
And the COPS office website, what is that?
Right. Community-oriented policing services is part of the Department of Justice. They provided the staff support for the task force, and they're the ones that provide grants and various other things for the departments around the country. We were part of collaborative reform, which is another thing that I asked for back in 2013. And we had outsiders come in and look at our agency, and we had 91 recommendations on changes that we need to make, which we're in the process now of implementing as well. So there's a lot going on.
Policing institutions don't like change. It sounds to me, though, that you are an exception to that rule. It sounds like you embrace change and, are a proponent of education. You talked about, how before there was no requirements with regard to semester hours. Now there is. This is, I think, it's the future of policing. More education in every aspect of our lives, and it has to help things.
Well, yeah. I mean, listen, the job is increasingly complex. Our role in society is increasingly complex. And I think we do a disservice to our young people when we let them believe that in the future they're going to be successful with only a high school education, regardless of what they decide to do in life. We need to really be pushing education.
Minimum mandatory 4-year degree.
Eventually, I hope we get there in policing, certainly, but at least 2 years. And so I think you have to take it a step at a time. But I really do think that we do a disservice when we continue to make people think that they're going to be able to survive the next 20, 30 years and earn a decent living without an education.
Folks, we're going to be right back with Commissioner Ramsey. We got callers who've got questions lined up. Give us a call, 215-227-2727.
If you have legal problems and need answers, call My Philly Lawyer, Dean Weitzman, first at 215-227-2727 for personal injury, medical malpractice, birth injury, and more. Call Dean first.
He will fight for your rights. That's what Dean Weitzman is all about.
Call My Philly Lawyer, Dean Weitzman, first. 215-227-2727. My Philly Lawyer, when winning matters most. For 20 years, Center City Medical Center has provided premium expert medical services for Philadelphia. Whether you need musculoskeletal rehab or an immigration physical, call 888-945-EXAM. Our board-certified physicians have more than 80 years' experience from post-injury rehab to DNA paternity testing. To make an appointment at one of our 3 convenient locations, call 888-945-EXAM. Get premium expert care. Center City Medical Center, serving Northeast, North, and Center City, Philadelphia. If you've been injured on the job and are entitled to workers' comp, you need someone fighting for you from the start. Call Jeffrey Gross, attorney at law. Don't rely on your employer or insurance company to get it right. Call 215-512-1500. If you're entitled to workers' comp or it's being challenged, Jeffrey Gross can help get the money you deserve, and he won't get paid unless you get paid. Call 215-512-1500. Jeffrey Gross, attorney at law, representing Pennsylvania's injured workers for more than 20 years. It's a legal and financial squeeze. You're unable to work because of an accident, but your legal case is still not settled, so you can't pay the bills to take care of your family. But now, thanks to U.S. Claims, you can. If you have a pending lawsuit, call 1-877-U.S. Claims. While you're waiting for your settlement, U.S. Claims can help you pay the bills. Get out of the squeeze. Call 1-877-U.S. Claims today.
The following is a paid program brought to you by My Philly Lawyer. The views and opinions expressed are those of the sponsor and do not necessarily reflect the views and opinions of the station and its management.
Need more legal answers? Here's more Court Radio with your host, Dean Weitzman.
Hello and welcome back. It's Dean Weitzman and this is Court Radio. Hey, before we get too far along in our hour, I'm joined with a new co-host today. Cool cat from the Philadelphia Police, Charels Ramsey. Welcome back, Commissioner.
Thank you.
It's kind of a Midwestern police commissioner that Philadelphia has had the pleasure of having for almost 8 years now. And maybe longer. We'll see if we can convince him. But right now he's got a lot on his table, on his plate. He's got the Pope coming. The Dalai Lama. I didn't even realize that. This is like the religious mecca of the West. The Dalai is coming. Do we call him the Dalai or the Dalai Lama? I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know either.
Yeah, I'm not sure. But, wow, that's great. I got to get some of these guys up into the My Philly Lawyer offices. You know, this week, I just want to mention before we get along here that we had a couple of new clients get signed up who are Court Radio listeners. But more importantly, or as importantly, one came in and brought her, and she came fully prepared, brought her insurance policy with her, and I spent a half an hour going over her insurance policy because, look, we spend a lot of money for auto insurance. You do too. I mean, you know, you have insurance, right?
Oh, absolutely.
You're legal. So you know, you want to make sure that you got a policy that you can count on, God forbid, should you need it. And you don't want to give the insurance companies one nickel more than they deserve for a policy that doesn't provide you with the benefits that you need. So I put it out there, like, if you got questions about your insurance, come on down. This woman took me up on it. We spent a half an hour. She wanted to pay me. She was trying to pull money out of her pocket. No, it was a free service. You know, just come on down, bring your policy, and I'll go over it with you and make sure that, you know, those big insurance cats aren't really taking advantage of you, because they love to do that. You know, they just want to take all your money, and then when it comes time to give you something, they want to snicker up their corporate sleeve. All right, that's it. I'm done on that. Commissioner, do you have tattoos? I don't see any tattoos.
No, I don't have any tattoos.
I don't know. You would think, I don't know. This is my prejudice. Police commissioner, you know, up through the ranks, sergeant, officers, you know. Got some anchor or something, you know.
I have freckles. That's enough.
Well, summer's over, okay? The freckles are going to go. They're going to go away. Don't worry. Let's talk to Johnny from Northeast Philly, who's got a question for Charles Ramsey. Sir, what are you doing today? Oh, Johnny.
Yes, good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm fine. How are you today?
We're well, thanks. What's your question for the commissioner?
Yes, I'm not sure if the question has been asked or not, but my question is, if a police officer want to break a suspect down for whatever the reason is, instead of shooting the suspect, how come you guys are not using stun guns?
Well, we do have
opposed to shooting people, you know, in different parts of the body.
We do have electronic control weapons, they're called. Some people refer to them as tasers, which is a brand name, but it's kind of like Xerox. Everybody refers to that for copying. But we do have them. We do have them there. Now, we do have a use of force continuum. It depends on the situation. If you have an armed suspect with a gun that could possibly shoot you, then I would think that using a stun gun may not be the best option for you. There are other situations where the taser would be the appropriate use. It could be OC spray. It could be just verbal communication, talking a person down so you don't have to use any force at all. I mean, that's the whole point of a use of force continuum. I think it's important to remember these things go down very, very quickly. I mean, it's a matter of seconds. You may have months and years to look at it over and over again on video if you see it on TV. But with reality, when it goes down very fast. So we train our officers as part of reality-based training so that they exercise judgment and what to use if necessary. But force is a last resort at any level. The first option is always to try to resolve it without the use of any kind of force. But there are times, unfortunately, when an officer has to resort to deadly force, use a firearm. It's unfortunate, but it should be a last resort at all times. Nothing's more important than the sanctity of life. And if they don't, then obviously not only will they face discipline internally, but possibility of criminal charges as well.
Let me ask you a question. How is it that some officers get to carry a taser as well?
Well, we have about 2,000 now that are armed with tasers. I have a 6,500-person force. We have crisis intervention team training, which is designed. We work with our Department of Mental Health. It's a week-long training to identify people who are going through some mental health crisis, how to de-escalate situations, and of course, a electronic control weapon is a less than lethal option if you have to resort to that. They go through that training first, then they're issued the electronic control weapon. We're working now to come up with a variation of that, so over about a 2-day or 3-day period, we could take some modified training so we can get them out quicker. But we are in the process now of purchasing even more. We have about 4,000 people actually assigned to field duty that would be issued both body cameras as well as these electronic control weapons, but we're rolling them out, and we have over 2,000 deployed now.
Okay. You know, jumping off on I guess, jumping from what you're talking about, one of the greatest, in my opinion, one of the greatest disservices we as a society have engaged in is the whole deinstitutionalization of, mentally ill people. And, it used to be that there was hospitals that, for lack of a better term, warehouse them, because these folks never were able to take care of themselves. And there are worse things, i.e. leaving them on the street in the freezing cold and without proper sanitation. And we as a society have to deal with them. You as a police officer have to see that every day. I mean, that's got to be a big part of policing today, is just dealing with crazy people.
Well, we have to deal with a mental health issue in this country. The largest provider of mental health services, unfortunately, now are our jails.
Yeah, that's crazy.
And that is crazy. That's not what they're there for. We don't have the expertise, and it certainly is not what they're there for. So we have to come up with a solution. I mean, time after time, you hear about these shootings that take place, multiple shootings, people going in movie theaters and various other places, and one of the first things you hear, he suffers from, a mental health issue. Well, you got to get the right treatment. People have to be on their medications. You got to keep the guns out of hands of people that are going through this kind of crisis. So it's complicated, but it's fixable. But we got to focus on it and stay focused on it. Otherwise, it's not going to change.
We need to spend money in the right ways, and we've touched upon some of them today. Education is never bad money spent, and mental health treatment, in my opinion, is never bad money spent. And in that process, I think we have to divert money that we're spending on criminalizing folks that aren't really criminals. For instance, what do you feel about the decriminalization of marijuana?
Well, I think, and I was not in favor of it when it first came up. Small amounts of marijuana, I don't have a problem with decriminalization. But if we're going to do that, then let's also invest in treatment and prevention.
Amen.
Because there's long-term health consequences to smoking cigarettes, smoking marijuana, any kind of substance that you're using in excess. And that money needs to be channeled. I've not seen that. What I've seen is, okay, let's just decriminalize. But then what's happening in terms of treatment, prevention, trying to get people not to use it?
Right. And you look at a country like Portugal. Okay, Portugal has decriminalized everything. There are no drugs are not a criminal. It's a mental health issue. And they take that money and they put a ton of it into treatment. And so, folks, what you see is a decrease in the use of drugs and a substantial decrease in crimes associated with the use of drugs. I got to tell you, I'm not asking for your opinion, but I got to tell you that from my perspective, that's the future of the world. The future of the world, we're going to look back 100 years from now and go, really? You arrested people for shooting up heroin? That, that's like that's a mental health issue that we got to get them into a treatment facility. And then just imagine if we did, took all the money, all the tax money we made off of these drugs and put it into treatment. And getting into treatment was easy and it was substantial.
Well, yeah. I'm not there yet.
I didn't think you were. I didn't think you were, but
But I'll keep an open mind.
There you go. All right, I want to. We're running out of time. I don't have time for anybody else. I'm sorry, Monica. Chief Ramsey, I want to thank you, sir, for coming in here today. I want to invite you to come back,
and I will
whenever you'd like. It's an open door. If you've got something to tell us, you come right over to Court Radio.
Okay, thank you.
Sir, thank you for being here. Folks, thanks for your great questions. We'll see you next week.